Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined as always by Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And it's Monday with just 5 games here in the NBA tonight for us to choose from. In this one, we're taking a look at Philly as they are headed down the stretch against Chicago here at home. They are going to play a back-to-back as well, one in Chicago after this. Also have another game video up and our player props, so make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along with us. Also want you to head to thelines.com. That's where you can check out all of the great written content we have going up there right now about the NBA and more. Obviously, March Madness in full swing. We've also got the odds finder tool on there. You can make sure you're getting the best odds available to you from all of the bets, the U.S. sports books, giving you guys bets this season in the NBA. Nate, let's get into this little 5-game slate real quick and then jump into our game with the Sixers and the Bulls.
6 games, but we got a tank matchup here in the first one. Pacers -1.5 at Charlotte. Bulls are +8 at Philly. Totals at 225 here. Wolves are +8 at Knicks. They're going to be without Anthony Edwards for a while. And, of course, all their big men questionable once again. The Warriors trying to snap that losing streak on the road are -10 at Houston. Houston continues to upset people, but they're on a back-to-back. Dallas +2 in Memphis. Everybody important is questionable on both sides in that game. And the Kings are -5 at the Jazz. Totals around 240. It's been fluctuating. We will talk about that game in a separate episode. But yeah, Bulls Sixers right now. The Bulls are getting hot at the right time. They are who we maybe thought they would be at the beginning of the season, which is to say like a 9-10 in the East and firmly in place there now that they won 4 of their last 5. Doing it with defense, but they've had some surprising shootouts. I mean, mainly with the Wolves, that double OT game on Friday that they pulled out, and then they turn around on a back-to-back and still beat Miami. But, I mean, the Sixers are far more impressive recently, in my opinion, just not playing around. Won 3 straight road games by 9+ before coming home here. They've won 8 straight, and 6 of those were on the road. So having no problems with those home road splits we've seen in the past few years here. And then when they come home, it's a lot more of a slow down, grind out game, which makes me steer away from the over here. I actually kind of like under, even though these teams have spiked lately in terms of their scoring. I mean, you look at Philly, they're scoring 126 in this 8-game win streak, but 116 in the 2 at home. Playing at a 96 pace in the win streak, a 92 pace in the 2 at home, hitting 3 fewer threes at a 6% worse clip as well. You look at their home since the All-Star break, 4 or 5 have gone under. Games have averaged just 214. They're scoring 109. Elite defense, especially down the stretch here. They're number 1 in net rating and number 2 in defensive rating in clutch games since the All-Star break. That's pretty vital here. I mean, Bulls are also nothing to sneeze at. I mean, they have a great defensive rating for the entire game. They're 9th in the clutch. They have a pretty slow pace in the clutch as well. But the one thing that Philly continues to give up is transition points, as we know, 25th in that span at home here. Limiting, however, assists, threes, paint points, and second chance points. Top 10 in all of those departments. And playing at a very slow pace, as I mentioned. They do get to the free throw line. That's how their points are derived usually, with Embiid leading the way here. But as always, you got to look at his numbers against a specific team. And they're impressive against Chicago, but not, the kind of dominant, like, I can book 40 points for Embiid here. His prop is at 33.5. It's high per usual. He averages just under 32. With a 114 offensive rating, his last 4 against Chicago and Vooch. Only 9 free throw attempts per game, which is way down for him, which makes me steer away from the over as well. Because if you're going to play this slow, you need a lot of free throws from both sides. And Chicago, 20 free throw attempts in this 5-game heater. That's good for like 23rd in the league. So I think there's going to be a lot of half-court basketball here, slowed down the stretch. I do kind of lean under. And I, of course, like Philly here. So I think if you don't like the -8 here, if you think they might win somewhere in the 4 to 8 range, then tease it down and tease the under up to 229.
Yeah, you can get away with some teasers in this one. I'm definitely not going to chide you for that. But The reason I started to lean over, and the reason I just think things started to tell me a bit of an over at 224.5, 225, depending on what you're finding this total at, is the sort of turnaround from the difference between March and February for Chicago, and not a huge turnaround, but even an uptick in offense for Philly since March started as well. I mean, Philly's unreal right now. We know. I mean, if the fact that they're slated to win the Atlantic Division right now is absolutely insane compared to where they were before they just started playing like gangbusters. And 9-1 since March started, but about tops in the league, obviously. And the difference here is some of the over stuff, right? They're 7-3 to the over. That includes a game against Miami, which we always throw out the window when you talk about totals. And then February, they went 4-7 to the over in the 11 games they played in that month, and they're scoring 125 points a game this month. Last month, they were dropping 110, and the revitalization of the offense kind of happened, within the midst of the All-Star break transition in a way. So that, that's a big part of that in February. But then the 3-pointers are huge, 3 more this month in these 10 games than they had in the 11 in February. And they became a good rebounding team, as we thought they should be for the entire season. They are limiting opponent rebounds to the tune of the number 1 in the league right now. In March, they're still good, and they've been good in that for the last couple months. But it doesn't really matter to Chicago and how they want to score. That's not how they score. You can limit the rebounds against them all you want. They're just a good defensive rebounding team. It's not like they necessarily crash the offensive glass. And this month they are allowing 6 more points a game than they allowed in February, allowing a few more 3-pointers, which is huge. I know Chicago doesn't make 3-pointers, but what I'm about to talk about is Chicago's uptick in offense as well this month in March. And it was so stark because these are two of the best teams on offense in the league right now in the month of March in terms of their offensive ratings at 126 for Philly and up to about 120 for the Bulls, who are dropping 118 points a game this month as well. They're 5-3 to the over. The 3 unders, I did want to mention, one of them is Miami, so I get to throw that one out. Sacramento, they scored 231, but it's an under because it was Sac, and so that total was outlandishly high. We called under on that one. And then at Denver, which I don't know what you want to do with that, because that's Denver's weirdest loss of the season, despite all the other weird losses that they've had. It was at home, and it was with Joker, and it was the first time they lost at home all season with him. So it was just like a pretty, oddity. And it was the beginning of their win streak as well, when they started playing well, and they dropped 125 in that game. And Denver just didn't come along for the ride. So another weird one where I don't think you expect Philly to get locked up on offense by Chicago the way Denver did in that one. And then, in terms of their defense, it was amazing, right? In February, they allowed 103 points per game while dropping only 107, which was third fewest. But like I said, they're up to 118 points a game. They're up to allowing 116 a game. So their games have been averaging 234 in this month right now. And then in 3-pointers, that's what I was talking about with Philly. Like they've been good for most of the season at defending the 3, which will happen when you get a guy like PJ Tucker come into your squad and DeAnthony Melton at the same time. But they've actually regressed a bit here and there against a 3-pointer, and they've allowed 12 so far a game in March. Which is middle of the pack, bottom half of the league, but they were they were making 12 a month this month for Chicago. Once again, actually top half of the league, but they were only making 8 last month is really what I'm talking about. Chicago's makes here, right? And so dead last, obviously, when they were only making 8 a game in the month of February. So if that stays up a bit more, just doing the math real quick, they're making 4 more threes a game this month, which means they're scoring 13 points per game more this month than they were last month on pretty much the same field goal percentage, because they're just making a few more threes. If they put a few more threes in, they're still shooting about 50% from the field, which is good for second best in the league right now, behind only Philly, who's shooting like 52% from the field because they're insane, which is another reason they're dropping 125 is Philly, without getting to the free throw line quite as much. I mean, they're still getting there 27 times a game, which is top 5 this month, but last month it was up to like 29. They just weren't hitting threes, they weren't hitting other shots, and now Philly's, they're going off as well on offense in a pretty unprecedented way. And when these teams have played, I know that they both play at a really slow pace, but with Embiid in that first one, they just neither of them could shoot. They had awful offensive ratings, both of them. That's why it went to 223, which is still close to this match, and that had Embiid in it. So it's not like without Embiid they're playing faster. They're actually played faster in the game that they had Joel this game. So I think this is a good opportunity to get a little bit of value. I know 224.5 in years past might not seem like a super low total in the NBA, but this year anything under 230 is a little bit more ripe for over, in my opinion. I think this is one of those situations.
It's all these numbers in March, but like, who are they playing? And I mean, if you're just talking about points per game and not offensive rating, I mean, yeah, they have a double overtime game in there. They played at Detroit and at Houston, where their road games, other than that Denver game, which you throw out. The Bulls also play the Pacers, which is an astronomical total. And they've been shut down by basically every other good defense they've faced prior to that. I mean, early month, Suns. And then you go into late February, even after the break, though, shut down by the Raptors, held in check by the Wiz. Of course, the Bucks, and then they were awful before the break. So, I mean, yeah, I do think this team is turning a corner. I do think I would lean +8 more than -8, as we always talk about with Philly. They tend to just, scrape by, especially when it's this kind of like back-to-back situation with the same team. They're just going to try to get the win however they can. I don't think they're going to be able to put them away early, but I just see the way these teams play at such a slow pace. If there's not a lot of free throws, then there's not going to be a lot of scoring. The last matchup, it was a complete spike game without Embiid. Vooch triple-double. He has struggled against Embiid otherwise. Levine 11 for 13 from three. And while he's hot lately, I mean, Philly, like you said, has defended the three-point line really well. And I think they'll do a pretty good job. The one thing I do like is DeRozan to get 24 points here. If it is a slower half-court game, I think he'll continue his hot streak here. But yeah, I mean, we can disagree. You guys can follow whoever you want on this total, or you can tease it in your Philly direction. But it's an interesting spot here on a Monday night for a gentleman's bet.
Absolutely. A little gentleman's bet, as you said. I was actually thinking about Levine. You talk about the 41 he dropped. I don't think it's that much of an anomaly. That is one of the areas on the floor that Philly is a bit weaker because they either have James Harden or Tyrese Maxey guarding the shooting guard on the other team, which is going to forever be a problem. Zach LaVine went off for those 41. I mean, in his last four versus the 76ers, we're talking about 29 a game, including like a 20-point game earlier in the season when he was still kind of not right before he got hurt a little bit and then came back and has been on a tear. I mean, even just in his last four, Zach LaVine up to 30 a game. Once again, do with that what you will, because playing against Houston, Sacramento, and Minnesota is a lot easier than playing against some of the other teams that the Bulls have gone up against, obviously, in that division where they're playing a lot of really good defenses. But this is just a situation where I think Philly, despite how well they play on defense, I think you can get points from the mid-range. I think you get points from the perimeter. And I don't think that Embiid will continue to be able to be stopped. So there's plenty of points for him to be had as well. So, yeah, we'll see how this one goes, and we'll talk about some bragging rights tomorrow. But
then we got Kings -5 at the Jazz, open closer to -7. The total after opening at 239 went down and then got quickly bet back up to about 241. Definitely lean over here in this spot. I mean, but you have to keep an eye on Lauri Markkanen, of course. It's the biggest injury news to watch in this game for sure. Questionable with back soreness. I mean, the Jazz did play on Saturday after 4 or 5 days off and beat the Celtics by a little bit. So I don't know if he's overworked at this point. If they are pushing for a play-in spot still, he should be out there. For what it's worth, I mean, they have still gone over in 3 of their last 4 and covered in 4 of their last 5 without Markkanen. But they're also missing Jordan Clarkson, Colin Sexton, etc. You know, it's a Jazz team that we talked about being pretty thin offensively, and then they just go ahead and shove it down your throat in March here, mostly with Markkanen leading the way, but other guys stepping up, like the rookie Agbaji, Kelly Olynyk now back in there. They're playing great team ball and, averaging 117 in March, giving up 121, which is exactly where this total's at. So 7-0 to the over, basically 6-0-1. They've covered in 5 straight as well. So I don't think they're packing it in for the season. I don't see this as a tank job, which it looked like a little bit when they started losing to the Spurs, but this to me feels a little trappy for the Kings because they've been so great lately. It's continuing on this road trip after, excellent results out east. But now it's the front end of a back-to-back. They're hosting those Celtics that everybody's getting up for right now tomorrow night. I don't really see them covering 5 or 6 points here if they do get the win. And if it's a close game, it's probably a high-scoring game with the Kings. You talk about games averaging 239 for the Jazz right now. The Kings are going to juke that because they are the Kings. And we often target them at, say, like, okay, this is a good under spot if they're on the road. But that's usually against the East. Against the West, they are still going over on the road at a pretty decent clip here. And against Utah, I mean, first meeting this season totaled 151. They had a 123 defensive rating, and that's despite the Jazz going 25% from three, only hitting 8 threes. Second meeting in Utah, both teams shot under 30% from three, and we still got to 232, which is an under. But I see the Jazz getting 29 free throws and Markkanen getting 15 of them, and De'Aaron Fox shredding the Jazz defense once again, which he did last year as well, as a real sign that, both of the stars can be out here scoring. That is to say, though, I think, what I like more is the Jazz as a value play here in trying to predict the trap game. Just because of the spot for the Kings, plus, you talk about +5, 6, or if you tease it up for the Jazz not to lose by double digits at home. That arena is still pretty rocking. We saw on Saturday night. We saw what they can do to protecting the rim with Walker Kessler. I mean, for weeks now. And they're fourth in paint points allowed right now. Scoring on the other side in the paint as well, and getting good looks from three. Without Clarkson, the assist rate is way up. So they're getting good looks as a team. And you do like to see that against the Kings team that, does not necessarily do anything well defensively. They just outscore you, and they do score in the break. So the one thing to look at in March is Utah giving up the most fast break points per game and allowing the most threes per game. That makes you like the Kings offense here. And if they're going to score like 128, I got to think Utah's coming along a little bit at home, and we are going over.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit scary to take Sacks over on the road in these situations. Just like you said, it's more likely against the West that they're going to go over on this total. It's 241. So even some of these, I think there is a bit of undervaluing the amount of points that Sac can score when they're on the road. If you look at the totals that they've gone over on the road against teams, even just focusing on the West, let's just go ahead and bypass that 176-175 win real quick against the Clippers in LA because that was absolutely insane. But even, the Thunder in their next couple games against them on the road, they played, 2 in a row there. And neither of those totals got over 240. One was 240, one was 239. It's going to be right around it. It's not necessarily a lock is my main thought here. I think without Markkanen, I know there's still some numbers to say that they go over. Who did they have in that time, right? Like they lost everybody at this point at the trade deadline, mostly Malik Beasley. They're the guy shooting for them this season super duper well. And then Clarkson having another, great offensive Clarkson style year, probably his best one. But he's out. And I think that's huge and crucial to the numbers as well. I'd be a little bit more scared because of Clarkson being out if Markkanen doesn't play. And then just, even Sack on the road. I mean, I don't want to just make that proclamation that, but because, they're on the road right now, it's just going to be a little bit different. But I think that because of the fact that you combine the lack of offense that you're going to get from the Jazz on the outside and on the perimeter without Clarkson, and especially if Markkanen doesn't play. I know they've been getting a lot of points from the paint, have the Jazz, because they've been playing a lot better down low because they inserted Walker Kessler into the lineup. And he's actually the reason that I wasn't excited to be able to just pull the trigger on a Domas over who's been crushing the Jazz this season, because Walker Kessler wasn't really getting as much time when they played these two teams played earlier in the year. And now that that's the case, I think there's a lot more of a case to be made for Domas, failing to score 21 points tonight. His rebound prop 12.5 also scares me a little bit more, even though I think he's capable of it more so maybe. Walker Kessler has just been in there, limiting opponents' points in the paint, limiting opponent rebounds as well, especially to centers where they used to be the worst. Again, that was the position they were the worst against. And then, boom, you put Blocker Kessler into the lineup, and they rise all the way to top 3 or 4 in most categories defending opposing centers, including assists. And we know that's what the Kings offense is going to revolve around, especially in the half court. It's a lot of high post handoff and giving him options for cutters. So we'll see if Kessler can handle that. I think he can. He's gotten 25 minutes against Domas so far and did a decent job the second time, at least better than the first time where Domas just went off. So I think that's a huge part of if you stimmy that, then you stimmy the half court offense, and they got to get back on defense. And you mentioned that if they don't, then yeah, who knows what's going to happen in this one. But once again, if Markkanen doesn't play, I'm not really going to buy into what they've done without him when they had a better supporting cast around him prior to this game. And, that's really what I'm staying on tonight is if he doesn't play, I do like a bit of an under, and I might even consider Sack at -5 at that point.
No, that's totally fair. I'm not saying that just because, those games without Markkanen, some of them are months ago, like you said, before the deadline. And I would bail off this for sure. If bail off the over probably without Markkanen, but the Kings offense is just fierce right now. And it's obviously the best in the league. They're obviously hitting an incredible amount of threes. They just shot 60% in Washington, got 22 threes, and hit 250 total despite playing at a 96 pace. And these teams, when they get together, are probably going to be playing closer to 100 pace, maybe 101, which is what the Kings have actually been playing their last 7 roadies here. 5 of those have gotten to at least 239. So if it's, that's a competitive total where it opened. But like I said, it's about the average for a Jazz game right now. The Jazz have some interesting home road splits in that they've been lower scoring, better defensively at home, probably since the Walker Kessler experiment started. But on the season, they're still scoring more and allowing, higher free throws at home, still struggling to guard the 3-point line. And the Kings, again, with Malik Monk and Terrence Davis, just flamethrowers off the bench right now. Even if Sabonis isn't getting it going down low, he's just on such a heater getting those guys open. The Jazz cannot guard Fox, as I said, 37 points, only missed 7 shots last time he faced them. And the Kings just don't guard anybody. I mean, they're 28th in defensive rating during this hot streak here. And that's why, usually you're leaning over. It's just you need to confirm that the Jazz have their number one offensive player here.
Yeah, they're all-star, the finisher, Lauri Markkanen. I agree. It's interesting to see these numbers over the course of the last 15 games for Utah and how at home they're down to about 114 a game, and it's unsurprising. You get rid of everybody, and that's what's going to happen essentially. And obviously they're not even playing other guys nearly as much like some of the vets that they were. Guys like Kelly Olynyk not getting the minutes anymore. Not that he's a world beater, but he's an NBA vet that can score from multiple positions on the floor, and they're not putting that out there anymore. And the offense is struggling as a result. So I kind of continue to talk myself into an under the more and more we talk about this. Obviously, if Lauri Markkanen comes in and does something superhuman, then I can see 241, 242. But if he doesn't, I still think the odds are, even if he is playing, there's a pretty good chance for the under here. So, Nate, let's go ahead and jump into your first NBA play-up prop for tonight.
Yeah, is this the night that the Warriors actually win a road game against a Houston team that's on a back-to-back and has the worst record in their conference? Probably. They are -10 here, but a blowout is not something you're as worried about when you take a Steph Curry prop these days on the road, because every game has been relatively close. I mean, they're giving up 129, the Warriors, in 6 roadies since he came back. So that's why he's had to average 32 points, 5.5 assists, and nearly 6 threes per game in trying to get those wins. And that includes 2 at Memphis, which guards him very well. Didn't let him get many threes up. He went 7 for 16 in those 2. So you take the numbers for the other ones from 3, and he's obviously just lighting up teams. And Houston not really able to guard any point guards over their last 30. They're giving up the most points to the position. Over the last 15, giving up the most threes to the position. Also, when they're on a back-to-back, they give up 121 points. They give up 28 assists. They give up 16 threes in that situation. So that is all before I gave you Steph's numbers against Houston, which are unsurprisingly amazing. 34 points, 11.3 assists, and 7.5 threes at nearly 50% in his last 3 against the Rockets. 2 of them were in Houston. And then the one before that in Houston back in 2021, also 30 points, also 7 threes. I would go with 4.5 threes as the preferred prop here. It's nearly even money at FanDuel for him to hit 5. Like I said, he's averaging 6 on the road right now. That's something he could hit even if Houston does lay down here on a back-to-back. But 34.5 points and assists at -110 is more of a bet on this somehow being close again. Houston has somehow beaten 3, playoff contending teams in a row. And the Warriors cannot beat anybody on the road. I don't know the last time. I guess it was against OKC like a month and a half ago that they actually won on the road. So I have no problem taking Steph to score about 30 and hand out some dimes as well.
Yeah, full disclaimer, and I tweeted this last night, like, they should not be favored by 10 against literally anybody on the road right now. They're the Detroit Pistons. They have the same record on the road as the Detroit Pistons. Would you favor the Detroit Pistons by 10 on the road against the Rockets? No, you wouldn't, because the Rockets are a bottom 3 team in the league. And when I say you wouldn't favor them against anybody, this is what I mean, because like I said, this is anybody. This is the Houston Rockets. So that said, like, Steph has been doing him. They just lost when he had a 50-point game, which is the second time that's freaking happened in his career, which is insane because that's how bad they've been around him in that season right when they lost KD and this season. So like whatever happens with the Warriors is irrelevant to how well Steph is going to play. Their problems are just way outside of number 30 right now. So a guy that we have come to love, I mean, you already know he's my favorite Knick of all time, but also for player props has been super hot lately, and Jalen Brunson is back for the Knicks. 24.5 points is his prop. I'd like over that. We both do. Minus 111 on FanDuel. I do consider the assists here as well. In fact, I started to like those more when I saw those odds at plus 104 on FanDuel for him to get 6 assists tonight against this Minnesota Timberwolves team, which I believe is Anthony Edwards officially out tonight, or is he still listed as questionable?
Yeah. He's out about a week, I think.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, I would have liked to take them 8.5. I didn't see fully that he was out for that whole time last night when I was looking at these games specifically. But either way, even if he's not in there, like I like the Knicks in this one. I like them to be able to score. I like Jalen to get the Timberwolves. You know, a good starting place is that they're just allowing a ton of points. 2 point guards on the season, 5th most on the season. That has stayed around the same number once you get Mike Conley in there as well for the past month. That's not going to help out that offense. Love you, Mike, but just not there anymore for him on D. His welcome back game against Denver, big win for the boys on a Saturday, 116-110 for them. 24 points in that game when he came back, 5 assists as well. And then you look at his last 4 overall, 27 a game with a 150 offensive rating, and that even includes the 19 points he had in 19 minutes before leaving at Sac, which obviously he keeps his rating up high because he only played the 19 minutes. But I mean, come on, man, like that's crazy. Like he was on pace to continue getting some buckets that game. They ended up losing because they lost Jalen, but 9 home games that he's played since the beginning of February, 31 a game, 5.5 assists. That's with the 29% usage. The only thing about the assists is like, if they need him to get a bucket at the end, then he's going to get a bucket. But like, are they really going to need him to get a bucket, or is he going to have the free-flowing ability to also get assists? Like, you can take both, I think, and feel pretty good about it. Like I said, I feel pretty good about the assists because I don't know that he feels that need to make sure he gets it in the bucket when they're playing in a game that's not going to have that rough of a go on it. At the same time, like, I know he's going to love to score from the mid-range in this one if Rudy does play. And even if he doesn't, if Naz Reid plays, he might not either. Either way, there might not be much in the lane. His floater game is going to be available. His pull-up game is going to be available. I do like the points. I like his ability to get to the free throw line. He gets there 4 more times in his last 6 roadies than he has on the season. He's been averaging like a big uptick in those free throws because, like I said, he can get to the rim if there's no Rudy Gobert there, and even if Naz Reid is there, not quite the same shot blocker. So I think this is a good opportunity to pick Jalen against a team that like all season long has just been allowing teams to score from that exact position.
Yeah, everybody's questionable for Minnesota, as always. Like you said, Gobert, Naz Reid, other wings as well. And they're just reeling right now. I mean, they did just give up 49 to mid-range master DeMar DeRozan, right? So here comes Jalen Brunson, and here comes DeMar DeRozan for my second pick at 23.5 points, even money at DraftKings. He's averaging, he's back to like the MVP DeRozan we saw last year a little bit. 33 points, 7 rebounds, 5.5 assists on a 28% usage rate in his last 4, playing 43 minutes to pull the Bulls into this play-in race. Even after playing 52 in double overtime, he played 41 the next night and gave you 24 points and 10 assists. So hitting this prop consistently, he hits it consistently when he gets at least 1 day rest. You look at on a back-to-back, he averages 23 on at least 1 day rest, 26.5. His usage rate goes up 4 percentage points to 28.8% when he gets that 1 day of rest. And we talked about that weird game against the Embiid-less Sixers where the Bulls won, snapping a 13-game skid against them. Previous 5 for DeRozan since he joined the Bulls. And I mean, all losses to the Sixers, but he averaged 31 points on 53% shooting and 30% usage rate. So he is the guy who's going to try to keep them in it. I talk about the Sixers being a real half-court heavy team because they're so bad defending the break in transition. They're playing at like a 92 pace at home. So I expect this one to be close. I expect DeRozan to be operating in the half court a lot and scoring. And he has been a little bit better on the road versus at home as well. But it's really just a case of like his props are down because he had a rough go for a while in February. But now he seems to be scoring at will.
Yeah, I liked him in this one as well. I also mentioned in the game video that like Zach LaVine is ripe for another opportunity to score a ton of points off of them, but I also like points in this game. So like, yeah, give me some overs. And Zach LaVine, if he comes to play again as well, including that 41 piece that he put up on the Philly earlier this year, yeah, shoot, like why not? Like why would this game not go over at that point? So yeah, let's get some points from both these guys because I like LaVine and I do like DeRozan as well. I think he's gonna be able to get his in the part of the floor that Philly definitely struggles against a bit more in terms of that mid range, more so than they do in the paint and the 3-point line, at least in the past month or so. So let's finish things off here with insert Indiana Pacer player. Now I will say we don't have TJ McConnell props like we would like to have tonight. We know he's going to have a big impact based on Tyrese Haliburton not playing. His stat line should be improved from what it is on the season. As we know, when he does not have Halibaby in this year, we're talking about 6 points per game and 18 minutes with Haliburton versus 14 a game in 29 without him. Doubles, more than doubles, everything does because he's getting minutes. He's getting 5 assists a game in that sense. His last 8 without Haliburton, 14 points a game and 9 assists per game as in those last 8 that he's played as a starter. And yes, Charlotte, they're bad on defense. They're giving up the third most points in the paint, but I do want to throw out there that we have Andrew Nembhard stats at this point, and Nembhard is obviously another person who basically doubles his output when Tyrese Haliburton is not out there. He goes from 3 assists to 6 assists, 7 points to 13.5 points, and his prop right now is at 14.5. And if you look at his last 5 games on the season right now for Nembhard, he's averaging 19, and he's getting 32 minutes a game. He's getting 5 assists and 2 boards. They've clearly said we're not tanking. I'm sorry, we don't use that word on the show. We're not worried about winning the rest of these games this season. Tyrese Haliburton, maybe he could. If the Pacers were in a run down the stretch for a legitimate playoff spot, do you think Tyrese Haliburton would be sitting tonight? No. So the point is like they're allowing Nembhard to come in, get his usage that's been around 26% in the last 5 or so, with about 15 shot attempts a game, and that includes 14 points on just 7 shots in that domination of Houston, where he had 14 points because he only played 26 minutes because of that blowout. Charlotte, they're not great, but I don't think they're quite as bad as Houston right now, and their defense has been a little bit more formidable to at least be able to keep them in this game. But Nembhard coming from that shooting guard position, I like him. I do like McConnell, and I even would consider taking Nesmith as well from that power forward spot, which is a place that the Hornets have been vulnerable as well, which is down low and against the front court.
Yeah, in addition to Haliburton, you said Benny Matz, Duarte, Isaiah Jackson all might not play. Yeah. So the Pacers, they're just trying to get a look at their young guys. They're not necessarily tanking. They just don't, and didn't they beat the Bucks without Haliburton as well? Yeah. Mostly because of TJ McConnell's incredible effort on both ends. Yeah, I would like to see where his steals are at against a Hornets team that is just abysmal right now on offense without LaMelo. I would take his steals, but I think Nembhard, is the guy in terms of points that he's going to see a big elevation in usage as a ball handler and a scorer.
Yeah, been shooting the lights out as well from 3 as of late in his last 5, shooting 46% from deep. I believe he had 6 the other night. And then you talk about McConnell. Yeah, I love the ability for him to be able to do that. That win against Milwaukee was bananas. But yeah, a lot of guys not playing. So there's plenty of opportunity for all these guys on the Pacers tonight to get some numbers. And that is all the time that we have for you in this one. So make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along. Check out the game videos we have up for you tonight as well. Until we see you next, happy betting.